13-year-old Charlotte Kinsey is one of the girls, 5'1", blonde hair, blue eyes. Cindy Pallett, also 13, is around 5 feet with brown hair and brown eyes. They're thought to be with this man, 36-year-old Don Corey, who has now been charged with kidnapping. Several officers have been pulled from all departments in the Oklahoma City Police Department force to help out in the search. Due to some ulcer problems that Corey reportedly has, he's been traced to last being in Moore, Oklahoma on September 25th. Her mother has notified police, and they are now assisting in the search for 17-year-old Susan Calkins of Moore, Oklahoma. Her mother, Pat Calkins, told me this afternoon she last talked to Susan Tuesday at noon when she said she was going on a job interview. Now her mother has reports she was last seen at the fair Tuesday night.
Because she did meet a gentleman here Friday, and she has been back to see him several times. He works at one of the game booths, but the last time I talked with him, he claims that he doesn't know where she is. And
when was the last time he saw her?
He saw her Tuesday night.
Three young men went in for a helicopter ride, and they, as one of them became angry in the back seat, the information from the pilot, and as he was over this Delmar Street here, attempted to open the back door. They tried to restrain him. Two of his friends tried to restrain him, and as the door did open, he succeeded opening the door. The pilot attempted to restrain him, and he couldn't control the chopper and keep the door closed. So he lowered it to about 300 feet, and the man went ahead and jumped from the cockpit.
Workers spent the day tearing down the state fair, getting ready to move on to another city. Somehow that's a sad sign for the parents of the missing girls, because it was from here that the girls disappeared 9 days ago. And still, no sign of 13-year-old Cindy Pallett and her friend Charlotte Kinsey. Since their disappearance, the families have never given up hope they will be found. Charlotte Kinsey's mother has never been beyond an arm's length of a telephone. She was much too upset to talk to us on tape, but her sister Helen offered some insight on what they're feeling right now.
And I think this has done something to all of Oklahoma City. I know that we have received prayers, cards. We know people care, and I don't think they'll ever forget. And I know it'll be over pretty soon. We'll have Charlotte back home.
In the meantime, the city police is operating under the idea that the fair may be gone, but they're still on the case full force.
What we've done is expanded our investigation to include other states outside of Oklahoma. We're looking at Dallas, Texas, Alabama, Las Vegas, as well as one city in Oklahoma, Tulsa.
Because that's where the fair will be going next?
Absolutely. We have at least 4 vendors operating with the Oklahoma City Fair that will be going to various other cities once they leave Oklahoma City. And hopefully, because of Corey's background of working with carnivals, he will show up at one of those fairs.
Edward says the department has already put in 300 hours of overtime during the past week to turn up the slightest trace of the girls. But as Charlotte Kinsey's mother said today, which is worse, not knowing anything or fearing the worst. Nevertheless, they continue to be optimistic. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
The housing industry slump is 3 years old. High interest rates are strangling new home sales. The lack of work forces many construction professionals into other, more secure jobs. Many will leave construction for good. The housing industry is hurting, and the auto industry has been feeling the interest rate pinch too. Now these two industry giants have teamed up with the Realtors Association to mount a nationwide push for lower interest rates. Oklahoma representatives met today to talk about the national plan. They want low-interest loans for small businesses as well as home buyers, and they're asking President Reagan for help.
We know from a first-hand basis that the high interest rates are definitely a problem for us. Our approach mainly is that the Federal Reserve Board must address itself to the problem of high interest rates so that this economy can survive.
If the interest rate would drop just 2 points, from its current 18% to 16%, nearly 5 million more families could afford a home or a new car. That would be a big help to the housing and auto industry, and a big break for the consumer. Sue Lauer, Action 4.
Thirteen-year-old Cinda Pallett and her friend Charlotte Kinsey have now been missing for a week and a half. Everyone's trying to help in the case, including Cinda's classmates. Students at Highland West Middle School and more have band together, making signs and posters throughout the school, asking for donations to establish a reward fund. The Parent-Teacher-Student Association is helping the students gather the money. Families of the two missing girls have already set up a $1,000 reward fund, along with a $2,500 reward being offered by the Oklahoma City Crime Prevention Council. So far, the money has not turned up suspect Don Corey. The 36-year-old man was last seen with Cinda and Charlotte on September the 26th at the State Fair when he reportedly offered them a job unloading stuffed animals from a truck. The truck never came, and the girls haven't been seen since. Cinda's friends want to help find her, and even though their reward fund may not be that large, their thoughts and prayers are monumental. Carol Lambert, Action 4, at the Highland West Middle School in Moore.
It was definitely football weather for today's Beat Texas pep rally, but country band Mountain Smoke warmed up the OU fans who braved the brisk breeze. Putnam City High School band and the OU cheerleaders whipped the fans to a frenzy. Coach Switzer brought them down to earth with a plea for help.
I want you to do one thing for me this weekend. You can't play. I can look around the audience, a bunch of you I wouldn't want to have to play with. But I want to tell you, do one thing for me. I want you to say a prayer Friday night, and I don't want you, I think God Almighty I don't think he's a longhorn or a sinner. He doesn't really care who wins or loses. I don't think he bets on games. But I want to tell you one thing. I think you could say a prayer that we don't fumble, and that'd be good enough, because leave the winning up to us. Thank you.
The OU Texas kickoff isn't until 11:50 Saturday, but judging from the turnout at today's rally, the fans are ready right now. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Kerr Park.
There appears to be a small wave of cute movies out. It started with Continental Divide, then Neil Simon's Only When I Laugh, and now Paternity, starring Burt Reynolds. I must admit, when I saw the coming attractions and the television promos for this film, I thought it was going to be a real loser, but I was surprised. The previews are dumb, and they're misleading. The movie itself is not that dumb. It is an occasionally funny romantic comedy. Burt Reynolds portrays New York's most eligible bachelor. He's paranoid about dying and not leaving anyone to carry on his name. He feels, as he puts it, incomplete.
So, how old are you?
44.
Wow.
What do you mean, wow?
Maybe you'd better sit down.
I'm in great shape. What are you talking about?
I never knew anyone who was 44 before.
Your dad's got friends that are 44 or older.
Yeah?
Maybe I'm missing something in life. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do I seem, incomplete to you?
I had a teacher, Mr. Collins. He was 43.
Is he complete?
No, he's dead.
Reynolds has got everything he wants, except the one thing he wants the most, a son. But he doesn't want to give up bachelorhood to do it, so he hires a woman to have his baby, an issue called surrogate motherhood. The movie could have been a lot better, funnier, and at the same time have dealt more with this controversial issue. But the movie takes the easy way out by giving us a lightweight comedy with good performances from Reynolds and Beverly D'Angelo. In short, I got the impression the idea for this movie was a bit premature and a whole lot of thought was not given to realize the movie's full potential.
Have you seen Dino Lally?
No, he's gone. Vacation. Won't be back for 2 weeks. For today's movie review, I'm this guy.
The only problem with emergency services in Norman is at the hospital. Norman doctors sometimes have to consult with Oklahoma City doctors, and occasionally patients need to be transferred to the city. So the broken telephone cable is inconvenient for them, but they are getting around the problem by keeping a mobile phone just outside the emergency room. Volunteers with mobile phones will keep at least one vehicle parked there until the lines are repaired. The Norman police have the same setup, but one spokesman says he thinks Norman's 100-man force can handle just about anything that comes up without Oklahoma City's help. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
The promise of tax-free interest has a lot of private investors going after All Savers certificates. The certificates went on sale on Thursday. Savers can invest as little as $500 at better than 12% interest and earn up to $1,000 a year without paying tax on the earnings. But one other form of tax-free investment is a municipal bond. The rate of return on municipal bonds is considerably lower than on All Savers certificates, and some people fear that the competition will hurt the cities. Bankers disagree.
I don't see any threat in having watched the municipal bond market since the All Savers certificates has come out. I wasn't watching it specifically for this purpose, but thinking back at what's happened to the rates on municipal bonds have dropped as they have on other types of investments, so I don't think the All Savers certificate has affected the yield on municipal bonds or the cost of municipalities.
Luffelholtz points out that municipal bonds are sold in lots of 50,000. With the earnings ceiling on tax exemption with Savers certificates, the maximum tax-free investment is $18,000. Most investments will be smaller. That puts a broad span between the two groups, and bankers doubt that one will affect the other. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Norman.
While it is not the direct charge of this committee, the following comments noted and unstandardized accounting procedures similarly flawed. The committee has been confronted with the problems of to enforce. This problem was clearly in the various county offices. Efficiencies. Not only has the zero-based budgeting principles when controlling the abuse of county funds. Government also violates the principles of criminal activities in county government. The committee has found numerous
So far, 14 people have been arrested in Enid. The arrest was the result of a 3-month investigation. It was a cooperative effort between state and local law enforcement agencies. Most of the arrests were drug-related, but there were other charges, too.
Hey, I wasn't even busted for no pot or nothing.
He wasn't either. He was arrested with a large knife in his boot, while others were busted for sales of various drugs, such as LSD. Close to 20,000 doses of it was confiscated in related arrests last Saturday.
You know, some of these people are repeat offenders. How many of the 6 were second offenders the other day? 5 out of 6, wasn't there, something like that?
5 out of 6 or 4 out of 6. I don't
What about the 13? How many of them?
Numerous of them.
Yeah. But these people were the criminal element.
During the course of the investigation, Henderson says his undercover agents purchased several stolen TV sets, still in their boxes. So he believes his agents may have also uncovered a major theft ring. At least one suspect is being held on a stolen property complaint. 8 suspects are still at large, but for the time being, Enid authorities say they've made a major dent in the city's criminal activity. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Enid.
The final phase of the hearing began today. PSO will call several company witnesses in the next few weeks to present energy forecasts and their relation to customer demand and cost. The Corporation Commission actually has 2 questions at hand. Is the Black Fox nuclear power plant in Enola really needed? And if it is, should PSO be allowed to raise consumer rates almost $140 million to help with construction costs of the plant? The attorney for consumers opposing Black Fox says the commission has a tough decision ahead.
The commission could say that, fine, if you want to build Black Fox, build it, but you're not going to get any money until you turn it on and it works. What we're trying to do is to see that we don't play that type of brinksmanship. That is, if we're going to build it, let's decide that today. And if we're not going to build it, let's decide that today.
Because of the complexity of the Black Fox issue, this phase of the hearing is expected to last until the middle of next month. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
Sort of a summary of the planning of new generated retirement.
Stuff off.
I expect second shift probably be laid off, but I don't know when or how long or anything like that.
There's just a lot of rumors. Right now, though, I think the second shift's going to go.
We're hearing that second shift will be laid off the 1st of November, or either the 2nd of November, but it's still up in the air. It's not definite.
A lot of people are talking about second shift being laid off. Union man says you probably have to have an October 2nd or 8th seniority date to stay in the plant.
$5,700 Oklahomans work for the state's second largest employer. The workforce swelled to that number 2 years ago when a second shift was added. However, beginning November the 9th, the plant will operate with only one shift. The layoff will cut production in half. 75 cars an hour, a total of 600 citations and Phoenixes produced daily. Workers with about 2 years seniority will move to the first shift, and the 2,500 line workers at the bottom of the seniority list will be laid off. The question, how much compensation will the laid-off workers receive?
It'll vary by employee depending on his service and everything else, but generally speaking, it'll be between 75 and 80%, 85% for most employees.
And how long will the compensation continue?
They can count on that upwards of a year, about depending again on their service and other things, but it will be approximately a year for most employees.
The reason some 2,500 Oklahomans will be laid off November the 6th is pretty basic. General Motors is making more citations and Phoenixes than it can sell. The sales slump contributed to GM's $468 million loss in the third fiscal quarter. Eliminating the second shift and laying off the line workers is General Motors' way of tightening the belt. United Auto Workers President Keith Campbell says the unemployed line workers can thank their Reagan administration for the layoff.
And we don't want anybody to lose work, but we want to criticize some of the policies that are causing not just the Oklahoma City auto workers to be laid off, but auto workers all across the country and workers in other crafts as well. Because the administration has orchestrated a recession, and this is a result of that recession that's being orchestrated by the policies of the government.
The layoff is especially rough on workers who have moved to Oklahoma after losing jobs in the northern and eastern areas of the country.
I was laid off over a year up in Michigan, and now I come down here and work for almost a year and I get laid off again. So I don't know what it's going to be, you know, if I make it a year or not.
I don't really think that the import trade is helping this situation one little bit. I mean, I look around in our own parking lot here and I see imports here, and I've got to say to them, if you're laid off and you get hungry, eat your import.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see what turns out. We don't know for sure how long. Nobody said how long it'd be yet.
I'll probably go out and get another job if it's going to be a long time, but I don't think it's going to be that long. I think right after the Christmas holiday night they'll be back. They're not broke. GM will never be broke.
The workers will not exactly go broke either. Most of them will take home 75 to 85% of their regular salary in compensation pay. Larry Audis, Action 4 at the General Motors plant. Right.
Just yesterday, 24-year-old William Hensley was burned to death after his clothes caught fire while he was sleeping. The blaze spread throughout his home, leaving evidence that the fire may not have been purely accidental.
Fire investigators are calling the cause of the fire suspicious. They're not really sure what contributed to it. They're waiting on a coroner's report and also on laboratory results off physical evidence that was taken for laboratory analysis. They're suspicious that the circumstances of the fire were not those of just an accidental fire.
What about the number of arson-related deaths?
Well, we've already had this year 5 of our 21 fire fatalities have been inset fires, at least 5 of them, and that's more than for any other year that I'm aware of, and one of the main reasons that we've already suffered 21 fire deaths of the year to date in this year, whereas last year we only had 19 throughout the year, and I think 1 and a possible second arson death. So that's principally what's escalated the numbers this year.
Apart from arson fires, Cooksey warns that cold weather is the prime time for house and apartment fires. Everyone should check all electric appliances, gas and space heaters, as well as central heating systems. The popularity of fireplaces has also added to increased accidents. Chimneys should be checked and cleaned every fall before use. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
Today's roadblock may be the end of the road for PATCO, the union representing striking air traffic controllers. A 3-judge panel in Washington has cleared the way for the decertification of PATCO, a move that would strip the union of its right to represent air traffic controllers. The panel overruled a lower court stay of the decertification. No problem, according to former air traffic controller Tim Burlkamp. Now working as a plumber, Burlkamp says the decision is not a surprise.
I don't think it makes any difference. When we started this fight, we knew that they were going to throw everything at us. Decertification was definitely possible and very realistic. The only person that does not recognize us as a bargaining unit is the U.S. government. And as far as PATCO goes, I don't think the U.S. government's ever recognized us as a bargaining agent because they've never dealt in good practice. They're dealing with us. They're not dealing with a name or a person. They're dealing with all of us, and they will have to do that in the future.
This is not a major setback?
As far as I'm concerned, no.
Obviously, air traffic control continues here in Oklahoma City and elsewhere. New controllers being trained, and so far there haven't been many problems. It would seem with today's decision, the final nail has been driven in the PATCO coffin. Not so, according to Burlkamp. He says he still expects to return to work, possibly by the end of the year. Larry Otis, Action 4, Will Rogers Airport.
The story you're about to see is true. It happened at a big farmhouse in Trimble County, Kentucky. The names have been changed to protect them from the strange things that seem to happen to them.
Well, we weren't asleep. We were in bed, and we were talking. It was approximately 1 o'clock, 1:30, and we'd just gotten to bed. And a vanity that belonged to my grandmother started moving across the floor.
Because of evenings like that, Frank Smith, his wife and kids will not live in this house, which has been passed down through 3 generations. They have moved out.
When these beds beat together in the closets, it was a very dramatic wham, 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 wham type deal, and it got louder each time they began to beat. And then the voice that screamed was a lady's voice, very shrill, very terrifying, actually.
So, if you're moving to Trimble County, Kentucky, and you need a place to stay, call me. I think I might be able to help you, if you don't mind a haunted house. This is Jerry Adams, Action 4.
AmCare responded to a call shortly after 7 last night at the Brentwood Terrace Apartments on what was termed a DOA.
After the arrival of the medical examiner, it was decided to call in the Oklahoma City Homicide Department on a suspicious death. Detective Larry Kuntz was unable to give Action 4 any details. They are apparently awaiting the results of the medical examiner's report determining the cause of death. That report is expected around 9 o'clock this morning. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 AM.
A viewer writes in and says, the person I want to be the executor of my will lives in Texas. Can I name them as executor even though my estate will be probated in Oklahoma? Well, yes, you can. An executor, or personal representative as they are now called, need not live in the state where the will is being probated. If the personal representative does not live in the state, then he or she must appoint an in-state resident as an agent to accept service of summons in the event the estate is sued. As a practical matter, due to the duties the personal representative is to perform, as well as the court appearances, the best practice would be to appoint someone physically near to your estate assets. However, this is not a requirement of the law. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer says, I divorced my husband after 32 years of marriage, during which time we raised 6 children. I was awarded alimony, which my husband paid for a short while, but quit paying after he moved to another state. He's now retired, living on a military pension and Social Security. What can I do? Well, there's no procedure or law to force an ex-spouse to pay his or her alimony on time.